Welcome to the RAID seminar on women in agriculture and climate change, how climate change is impacting farming women in developing countries and the role they play in agricultural adaptation and mitigation strategies. So I'm your host, Anika Molesworth, and this event is made possible by the fantastic support of the RAID team, particularly Bianca, Shanice and Madison, who I want to thank for setting up and helping to run this event. So today I'm representing RAID, which stands for Researchers in Agriculture for International Development. RAID is an Australian-based network that brings together students, early, mid-career researchers with an interest in agricultural research in developing countries. And you can stay connected with RAID on social media, and there will be links provided in the chat box to find our website. You can also become a RAID member. So if you want to get involved with more events like this, that's possible by joining up. And we are supported by the Crawford Fund, which seeks to increase Australia's engagement in international agricultural research and development. And so you're aware there is an international travel award being offered by the Crawford Fund for students at the moment. So applications for that are currently open. Just some brief housekeeping rules. Today we are running this Zoom session as a webinar, so you can write questions that you have for our panelists in the Q&A section, and you can upvote these questions that you want to hear answered. We're also running this webinar live on Facebook at the same time, and a recording of this webinar will be available through the RAID website afterwards, on the Facebook site and on YouTube, hopefully. So today I am joined by three amazing panelists. Each are going to give about a 10-minute presentation on who they are, the challenges women in agriculture face from climate change, and the important roles farming women play in the solutions. Now, this is a huge topic, and we're going to be taking a tour around the globe to get their perspectives, because these three women have experience in different regions. So we have Tamara Jackson, who for the past few years has been working on a program that aims to improve food, energy and water security in India, Bangladesh and Nepal. Tamara was also my master's supervisor when I was in Laos and Southeast Asia. So Tamara has great insight into many countries and is an all-round amazing human. We also have Elizabeth Brennan, who coordinates multidisciplinary agricultural projects in Papua New Guinea. And Liz hails from the Western Australian wheat belt. And she and I are both involved in a fantastic Australian farming group, which is advocating for climate solutions called Farmers for Climate Action. And we also have Humera from Pakistan, and she manages a dairy beef project and established an initiative called She Leads Vet. And that's to support young women in the veterinary community. And Humera and I actually met in Antarctica last year. And sharing a passion for young people in agriculture, we have run a few events since. So to kick things off this evening, I just want to paint the scene. So human-induced climate change is being driven by greenhouse gases that we are releasing into the atmosphere. A greater concentration of these gases acts like a blanket around our planet. And the greater the concentration, the thicker the blanket, the warmer the planet. However, the blanket doesn't wrap around Earth equally. It's kind of like the blanket was ruffled, and some places and some people experience greater impacts of climate change. Farmers are impacted by climate change greatly because they live and work so closely with the natural world. Climate change makes extreme weather events like floods and droughts and bushfires more frequent and more intense. And these changing conditions are directly impacting what food can be grown and where. Farmers therefore need to be well informed on how temperature and rainfall patterns are changing, how to cope with extreme weather events, new pests and diseases. They need to know how to adapt their on-farm practices and also how to reduce on-farm emissions. Rural women, especially those working in agriculture, already face insecurities and inequalities at a global scale, and climate change is therefore considered a vulnerability amplifier. So to solve climate change, farmers play a key role because they manage land, water, biodiversity, And so it is very clear that rural women need the skills and the knowledge to be climate champions. And with that larger picture, I now want to get more detail and hear about women in agriculture in different parts of the world from our three panelists. So first up, Tamara, and then we'll hear from Humera and Liz. So welcome, Tamara. We look forward to your presentation.
Thanks, Anika. Just one second. Sorry, just wait while that loads. Is that loaded okay, Anika? Okay. Hi, everyone, and thanks, Anika. As Anika said, I'm Tamara Jackson, and I'll just tell you a little bit about myself to start with before we start looking more at women in agriculture and the kind of work that is being undertaken in the program that I work in at the moment. So I grew up in Western New South Wales on a property, and I've always been interested in, I think, in agriculture, in how things work, in people and travel. And so the ability to have a career or, you know, a job that combines all of these things is really something that I'm very fortunate to experience. When I finished studying, I was lucky to get a job with CSU on an ACR project in the south of Laos. So that was in 2011. So for the most of the past decade, I've been living and working overseas. And in Laos, I worked for the first few years in a provincial town in the south, and that was really important. It was a huge learning curve. I think I'm still on that learning curve. But the ability to live in a smaller town and work with local colleagues at the local agriculture office meant that I really got to see smallholder farming systems firsthand. Very often, we were always going to the field. I made really great friends, and I got to see what I guess agricultural research looks like from the other side and what it's like to be the implementing partner in country. So my current role is with, the photos here on the left show some of the photos, some of the work that I've been doing over the last, or what work has looked like for me, I guess, over the past 8 or 9 years, both in Laos and then in Nepal, India and Bangladesh. So for the last 18 months, I've been based in Nepal, working for ACR's Sustainable Development Investment Portfolio program. It's part of a bigger DFAT program that aims to improve food, energy and water security in South Asia. And ACR's work is focused in on the Eastern Gangetic Plains, where basically Nepal, India and Bangladesh come together. The program looks at everything from the farm level, which is based on conservation agriculture for sustainable intensification, through to institutions, extension, biophysical constraints, and institutional effectiveness. Is it working?
Do you want to hit power slide?
I have done that. Oh, it's not working. Sorry, everyone. As well as having a foresight element, which looks at what the future holds for the Eastern Gangetic Plains. So day to day, I've been based in the CIMMIT office in Nepal, who are our partners in the project, in the program. And I work closely with colleagues in India and Nepal, as well as my ACR RPMs and other project leaders to help steer the program, commission research, report to DFAT, communicate project outputs, and make sure the projects are integrated and deliver on our goal overall. So I'm going to take a bit of a broad look at women in agriculture, because I think it's really important to think about how women are engaged in agriculture. And obviously we've all been in rural areas in the countries that we work in, and women are certainly present in rural areas. But you can see in this graph that women's workforce participation differs for different countries. And this graph shows female to male labour force participation compared to incomes for countries of similar income levels. So you can see that there's huge diversity, and that women, the situation for women is not the same. In the countries where we work, obviously rural populations are high, and agriculture is the most common employer of women. But even if we narrow down to where our program works in the Eastern Gangetic Plains, so just looking at Nepal, Bangladesh and India, we can see a huge diversity, even though this area is basically one relatively small geographic area. So in Nepal, women's workforce participation is really high. It's nearly equal to men. Bangladesh, it's about 60 or 70%. And then when we get down to India, it's really only about 25 to 30%, and it's been declining over the past decade. So I think we have to keep in mind when we're thinking about women in agriculture is that women in different countries have different roles, that it's not the same kind of level playing field. And even women in different, even women in the same village or even in the same household often have a different experience in terms of how they're engaged in agriculture, in the workforce, and the impacts that climate change has on them. The other thing about women's work is that it's often invisible, and so it's hard to separate farm and non-farm tasks, that they get interspersed throughout the day. And in many surveys, women's work is actually not counted as productive work. So that's one of the interesting things that came out of some work that Sucharita Sen did from JNU, showing that the way the surveys, for example, census are set up for Nepal, Bangladesh and India is really different. And so the kinds of questions they ask are different, and the way women's work is accounted for changes. So I think if we know that agriculture is a major employer, and also women are living in rural areas, we know that women are disproportionately affected by climate change for several reasons. If they're dependent on agriculture, obviously they're at the vagaries of the weather, as Anika said before. So they're vulnerable to changes in weather patterns and to extreme weather events like floods and droughts, and that they occur with every year in the Eastern Gangetic Plains. Women are also more likely to live in poverty, to face inequality in food distribution, often have limited access to and control over resources, and are excluded from decision-making institutions. So I think we need to understand that kind of broader situation for women before we can address major challenges associated with climate change. And now I just wanted to give a couple of examples from the work that has been done in the Eastern Gangetic Plains. So I think on the bright side, although there are a lot of challenges, there are also a lot of solutions. And climate change solutions, or the solutions for climate change related problems, are in line with development pathways. So they fit into existing initiatives. So things, for example, that increase income production, improve food security, build capacity and strengthen institutions, are ways to address climate change, but they're also fit with existing initiatives and aspirations. So this is an example from West Bengal. As I said, the project work is based on conservation agriculture-based sustainable intensification. So those technologies are shown to be climate smart technologies in terms of using less resources, including water, energy and labour, and generating less emissions while maintaining productivity and increasing profitability. So if we have a climate smart technology, then there are climate smart business opportunities that have come with that. So our colleagues in West Bengal were really concerned that although labour saving is a benefit in in many instances, it's also it can be a problem for the people who are displaced, whose labour is displaced and who traditionally were transplanting rice, for example. So in this instance, the mechanised rice transplanter needs to have seedlings produced in mats, in trays that you can see in the photos. And so that has to be ready for the service provider to when they're sowing, when using the mechanical rice transplanter. So they found that this was actually really well suited to groups of women in the region, because they could work as a group, they could do this work in the village. It wasn't too time consuming, and they had also, their labour was freed from transplanting. And it's just, twice a year they have, you know, these kind of 1 or 2 months of work within the village. And then the money is actually, they also have control over the income that they generate. And the second example is also from West Bengal. So the fact that women had more time, that they weren't transplanting, our partners worked with another development partner to find alternative income generating opportunities. And so women in this group are producing mushrooms. And again, it's just something that makes use of the time that they've saved. And it fits because they can do it at home. It's relatively low cost to set up. When we took these photos, my partner that I was with had been there for about 6 or 8 months earlier, and there were only about 10 women producing mushrooms, and now this time there were about up to 500 in the just the local area. So that was really interesting opportunity that our partners had identified. So that's where I'm going to leave it. I just thought it's important to think about the broad context, but then also think about some things that we can do closer to home and have some concrete kind of ideas. I think that we definitely need to be aware that climate change impacts women and look for opportunities to engage them and avoid negative consequences associated with that. Thank you, Anika.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tam. I absolutely love those images of the women with the mushrooms there, and definitely, you know, looking for opportunities on how to engage rural women is just incredibly important. So I'd now like to invite Humera to join us and share some slides and her insights from Pakistan.
Yeah, thanks, Anika, to invite me here. So let me share my screen with you. Okay, I think it's perfect now. So I'm Humera Iqbal, working as a project manager in Pakistan. This project, Dairy Beef Project, and it is supported by Australian government in Pakistan with the implementing through Melbourne University and Charles Sturt University. The aim of this project is to improve smallholder dairy and beef profitability by enhancing farm production and value chain management. A bit background about Pakistan. Pakistan is the largest milk producer, and a huge number of farmers who are adopting traditional practices, and hence they are facing low production. And through this project, we are engaging farmers to improve their productivity and also introduce some entrepreneurial models to the women, especially like value addition models. And certainly they don't have access to market, so we are linking them with the market as well. Also including whole family to link with this approach, and providing the awareness to the consumer about the better products. Yeah, this is the objective of my project. This is one of actually an objective of my project, to integrate the whole family extension approach within various extension organizations. Actually, smallholder farmers are a critical part of the population and the economy in Pakistan, and many different organizations engaged with these farmers are with different reasons. So we are successfully engaged those organizations and created a community of practice group and trained farm advisors to deliver them different extension methodologies, innovative techniques, that how they can get involved with the farmers and improve the farm production. And ultimately, we are also evaluating the impact of this approach on farm advisors' skills, at farmers' productivity, and overall the organization management or organization arrangements, how we can support them and how they are getting benefit through this approach. The second approach which we are working is the value chain approach, because in Pakistan, farmers are having animals with low growth rates. So we are linking smallholder farmers with the markets through value chain approach with Dr. Tony Dunn from Queensland University and Emma Hand from Charles Sturt University. She actually mentoring our team that how we can grow the size of pie, and by using the value chain development approach, rather than to cut any middleman or cut any chain actor. So rather than to focus on how we can bigger the size so that everyone can enjoy their bigger share. So we are through this approach, we have worked in different markets in Pakistan and find out that what are the profitable market opportunities for smallholder farmers, and conducted different surveys and sharing those findings with the farmers, because farmers have potential, but particularly they don't know the market specifications, and our team is helping them that how they can grow the animals according to market specifications. And we are really moving forward this objective. And the third objective of my project is to engage young researchers, early to mid-career young women and the researchers to engage in on-farm research. Currently, our team is doing a fodder and seed production research with different universities. We have also currently in this pandemic, our team is successfully engaged to conduct research on how poor groundwater quality can impact the farm production. And also preparing different extension materials to share with the farmers as well. So the fourth objective, linking with the objective 2, the approach which we are working with the farmers is the valuation approach, that we are engaging farmers to develop their capacity for preparing them that how they can collectively market their produce to get more benefit. So in this way, we understand that the women are more involved in production activities, and they are willing, and even they involve in marketing activities, but they don't have expertise. And the feed ingredients or feeding resources which are available to them, they don't know that what is the value of those feed ingredients. So we are mentoring those females as well, and also linking male farmers to the markets and creating a farm business groups within the community, and also replicating these learnings to our other parts of Pakistan and sharing with our stakeholders as well. If we come to the topic, or I would reckon that the whole farming system in Pakistan is working, that it is all activities are interlinked with the a household, all of the activities which we are doing. So the interdisciplinary approach really helped to improve the farm production and its impacts on environment as well. If you see this picture, this is a traditional farming system. I can elaborate a bit that in this picture you can see different age groups of even animals and even a household. So if you see that the farmers are facing here the low production, and the young calves are facing early mortality and poor growth rates. So the farmers are actually involved in traditional practices. They don't know how to adopt the modern practices, and they can reduce these stress on the animals. Even they took animals to the offer feed and water to the animals twice or thrice a day. Animals can't move freely to get feed or drink water. So whole family, you can see in this picture, women is involved, a boy is involved, the whole family is involved. But if we see that the stress of environment or the low production actually causes the men to work in different cities to do other jobs, like they are going to outside of the village to get greener pastures, and the stress is whole stress is on women. They are more involved in all of the practices, including household or domestic work, and in severe drought they have to cut and carry fodder from the field, and also fetching water from the distant place and offering them to the farmers. So in this way, women are really facing a stress and burden. Farmers have actually limited access to quality fodder, most in low protein, high fiber, or low quality of fodder seeds even available, and hence they have to purchase highly or costly feed ingredients from the nearby markets. So these are the certain traditional farmers' problems, and how women are helping them, all that. Hence, it all impacted the climate. When animals have low production, and they actually contributing in the greenhouse gases. So in this whole process, women has less access and control over productive resources actually, like land, irrigation, infrastructure and agriculture inputs. Hence, they are having a low awareness or low technical knowledge or less advisory services at their doorstep. So in our project, we actually developed a gender mainstreaming strategy, that how we can understand the role of women and develop the capacity of women in decision making and to make them the part of the solution. So if you see that climate change risks in Pakistan actually facing major 5 risks which are contributing in the agriculture sustainability. So the high temperature, the rising of the sea level, glaciers are melting, heavier and frequent floods, and certainly the severe droughts. So these are 5 threats which Pakistan is facing, and it contributes in the economy of agriculture. If we see the part of solution, then we have to actually engage more women in to develop their capacity and spend some more funds to make them the part of the solution, and also engage farmers and whole family to reduce the environmental impacts and train them that how they can get more production with limited resources. Hence, they can contribute into the lower environmental impacts. So the decomposing of manure is a big problem. So we can train them in this respect as well. So adapting manure storage and management practices, this is highly needed in Pakistan, and improve breeding, though this is a very big or broader long-term goal. But this is quite important. At least its information or its awareness must be with the farmers, so that they can know that what are the quality or potential breeds they have to take in with this. So this is whole about in Pakistan working, which our project is helping the farmers. So any question I will take after. I hope so I have covered in 10 minutes. So any question you can write that. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Humera. That was absolutely fascinating. And I love those fantastic concepts of whole family extension and whole farm system research. It's really highlighting the interconnection amongst the farming systems. And as researchers, we should not be fragmenting our work, but we should have that holistic perspective that considers all these different interrelated aspects of the farm. Now we're going to have Liz up next, but I want to remind you participants that if you have any questions, there's a Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen, and you can put your question in there. You can upvote questions that you would like answered, and we'll be coming to those questions after Liz's presentation. Take it away, Liz.
Fantastic. Thanks, Anika. Rightio. Hello, everyone. Right. Now, share screen. Let's rock this. That one. Rock and roll. Rightio. Hello. Okay, so I get the home stretch, number 3 on the ticket. So I'll keep it, well, the topic's not light, I'll have to admit, but I've got a few, I guess I've identified 3 particular challenges in the P&J context, and then also offered 3 solutions just so we can keep them at the fore of our mind. So I'm tuning in, as Anika said, from Western Australia. So it's not 6 o'clock or 6:30 or wherever you all are. It's 5:30 over here. I'm tuning in from our family farm 2 hours northeast of Perth in the WA wheat belt. I would like to acknowledge that I am currently on Balladong country, and our family farm here, and also on Yuward country. And I would like to acknowledge our traditional owners, past, present, and emerging. I would also like to acknowledge that whilst, you know, I love Papua New Guinea and I have a strong and long connection with the country, I'm not Papua New Guinean. So this is very much an outsider's perspective of Papua New Guinea. So yeah, I just want to keep that in mind. I first travelled to Papua New Guinea in 2009, and that happened when a friend of mine and I hate to admit it, it wasn't anything fancy. We were drinking vodka premixes and dared each other to walk the Kokoda Trail. So 6 months later, we were on the Kokoda Trail and I fell in love with Papua New Guinea. 6 months later again, I relocated to Papua New Guinea as an Australian volunteer for 2 years. I have been travelling back and forward from PNG over the last, since then, in my role. I was president of Australian Women in Agriculture for a number of years and on the board for even longer. And I've been very fortunate for the last, how many years? 4 years, I think. Full screen mode. It's full screen on mine. Can I get a thumbs up from someone or thumbs down? Full screen? Not full screen. Fabulous. Righto. I love all the technology. Stop share. Share. Microsoft PowerPoint. Share. Share. Full screen? No, I'm not getting, oh, there's a bit of a delay. No, not full screen. I'm sorry, guys, you're just going to have to roll with me. It's full screen on my computer. We tried this out before and it's not working. Apologies. For the last 4 years, I've been very fortunate to coordinate a multidisciplinary agricultural research and development program on behalf of DFAT and ACR, so Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and the Australian Centre for International Ag Research. And this this map, I'm hoping, there we are, we can all see a map, gives a sort of a geographical reference point for what for the program that I coordinate, and also some of the projects that I'll reference. So, and the 3 little points, they are just small speaker view. We can still see the slides, they are just small speaker view. Sorry guys, I'm just going to have to roll with it because I can't figure it out. Or is it really, really terrible?
I think really, it's fine, Liz. Yeah, we can go ahead with it.
Sure. All right. Sorry, I think there might be a delay with the messaging. So yes, that's the program. Now, this first photo is of one of the projects that I'm involved with as part of the part of TADP, the program that I coordinate. I've put a link in the chat box, which you can check out the website later. And the reason why I love this photo has me recall a time when I lived in East New Britain, where I was in the market one morning and I was the only non-Papua New Guinean there, and this crazy man who was he was not happy chappy that morning. He came running towards me, and I had this wall of Papua New Guinean women just stand up instantly in front of me to protect me effectively, and this man ran away in the other direction. So I have a strong affinity for PNG women, and yeah, it kind of set the scene for my relationship with them ever since. So I mentioned that I was going to talk about 3 main challenges and 3 potential solutions. So the 3 main challenges I see for PNG are around food security, around the impact on livelihoods, and the tension of economic development preventing other further environmental degradation. So food security, PNG is diverse. There are 840 languages in PNG, and the roles between men and women are quite different. Generally speaking, women work the gardens, we would call them farms, and farm for food crops, and men farm the cash crops, so things like coconut and copra. As the climate changes, food production reliability changes, and unpredictability can cause food shortages, which is, as I mentioned, the domain of women. Changing weather patterns are now also posing a threat to maternal health as a flow-on effect, because women are having to work harder to produce more food, and often the mortality rate is also increasing. So child mortality rate and maternity mortality rate is increasing also. Secondly, the livelihoods impact. 80% of the nation's population are rural-based subsistence farmers. So aside from the food crops and cash crops I mentioned, PNG livelihoods are highly linked to weather-dependent activities such as fishing and small-scale cash cropping. These communities are exposed to climate-related hazards, including cyclones, droughts, floods and landslides. So, Humera, we don't have glaciers, but we've got all your other impacts. When there's limited capacity for economic gains, there can be additional tension that women face. And often it comes in the form of domestic violence, less capacity to invest in health, and which means that women are often tasked as caregivers. There's less investment in education, which reinforces the poverty cycle, of which women are often the hardest hit by. So, and finally, the tension of the final challenge, the tension of economic development while preventing further environmental damage. PNG is arguably cursed with beautiful natural resources, but abundant natural resource in terms of the environment, but also in terms of its oil and gas capacity. 40% of the population are living below the poverty line, and I guess the desire to pursue economic development is highly sought, and supporting infrastructure is highly sought after. So this tension is a major challenge. So this next photo is actually of Panguna in Bougainville, which was once the largest open-cut copper mine in the world. And as you can see from that bright blue fluorescent colour, the implications of with a lack of capacity for PNG to manage these kinds of projects and wanting to create this kind of economic development, the impact has been quite significant, affecting water sources, environment and whatnot. Again, when the domain of women is often for water collection, and it affects food security also. And when in the case of Panguna we have such a significant, and for those that don't know about Panguna, I'd recommend Googling it. There was a civil war that broke out the back of it, and again, women are often bear the brunt of this. So in terms of solutions, this next one is actually a video of one of the projects within the TADEP program. So it's of a sweet potato farm up in the highlands of PNG. If he's on, I'm going to give a shout out to Kurt, who is involved in this sweet potato project, and he gave me a shout out on community radio the other day, so returning the favour. So solutions, women as decision makers. It is so important. So when women are seen as equal in the family unit, decision about how to best mitigate climate change impacts are more considered and effective. There are different factors affecting food security, health, economic generation, etc. are addressed. So one of the projects in the Family Farm Teams project, in the program that I coordinate called the Family Farm Teams project, it's about the whole of family farming unit coming together to make decisions, which draws on the strengths of both men and women. The second thing, equal access to resources and services. If the role that women play in agriculture is recognised and they are provided equal access to resources and services, climate change can also offer significant opportunities for women to become agents of change. Given the gendered implications of climate change, addressing gendered barriers is critical so that we can have, so that the most appropriate climate smart agriculture practices and technologies can be identified. And finally, asset-based climate strategies. The Wontok system in PNG is a social system or a relational network in PNG, and from the outside or Westerner eye, it can often be a source of corruption. Yet, in the context, we had a significant drought in PNG in the highlands in 2015-2016, and it was that network that supported so many people through, because they were able to provide that support. So having an asset-based approach to this kind of climate change solutions also. So climate change can be the most devastating for women. Women can also generate the most considered and effective climate change adaptation and mitigation strategies. The future is female and our Mother Nature depends on it. Thank you.
That's wonderful, Liz. Thank you so much for that. And I love that that solution. You know, one of the most important solutions to all of this is increasing women's role in decision making, and that's exactly what Tam was saying. In that, you know, currently farming women are excluded from a lot of the decision making, and we can't continue like this. So we're going to head over to some questions now, and we've had a few come through. So we've got one here from Jack Hetherington. What recommendation would you provide to research teams when trying to set out to engage women farmers in these research activities? So if anyone would like to jump in, so what's the advice to the researchers to engage more women in these projects and these challenges?
So I'll jump in. And I think I've certainly seen it in TADEP projects, diversity is critical. So ensuring that the project team, because without having a diversity within the project team and with the project partners, where possible to influence, and across, I think it speaks to all three of the projects and programs that we're involved with, is having multidisciplinary approaches as well. Because without having that diversity, of which women are, key to that diversity, we actually aren't considered in our thinking. And the presence of women actually has our thinking changed so fundamentally and think more holistically.
Brilliant. I can imagine that's quite difficult in the PNG context when you say there are so many languages too, and probably such a diversity of culture across PNG. So that must be an extra layer of complexity for you, Liz.
Yeah, it is, but that's why I love it so much.
Brilliant.
Tamara, you were going to say something?
Oh, I was just going to add that I think you really have to be intentional about engaging women. So don't just say you want to do it and then not make a plan for it. You have to plan for it. And you also, the thing I like about the projects in our program is that gender is integrated into the research questions, not kind of gender as a separate component, but, the kinds of questions you're asking about how would this impact on women and other minority groups. So, tenant farmers, etc. So I think those are two key elements in addition to what Liz has said about diversity.
Yeah, I would also add into that. If in our project, I mentioned that we are developing the gender mainstreaming roles of women and understanding that what kind of activities are complex for women and how they can be engaged with those activities which having less resources. So we actually understand that farming system enlist all of those activities and provide the need-based trainings to them and also involve researchers accordingly. Like in our team, firstly, I would share my experience that in our team, there was only male members. So we can't able to engage or include more productivity. And then after that, even with the experience, we include more women. And now in our team, every one team is included one male and one female social mobilizer and area advisors. So it is more helpful to do that and conduct more in-depth interviews and to dig out this situation for finding out the solutions. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've had a question come through on Facebook from Kate, and she asks, each presenter mentioned that we need to have women as decision makers. What examples are there that have helped raise or empower women into these positions, particularly where it challenges significant social norms?
Good question.
Yeah.
I think,
yeah.
I mean, back to what Liz said earlier, it's about having, women, being able to see other women, in positions of decision-making positions or, doing playing a whole range of roles is really important.
Yeah, I would add to that, and I think certainly in the work in my program, it's made a difference for me being a woman. And whilst I'm not Papua New Guinean, a bit to Tamara's point, Papua New Guinean women seeing me in a significant role as a young woman and as a woman is, really, it actually enables them to step up. The other thing that I would say is that the importance, I touched on it briefly when I was ripping through my notes around the family farm teams model. It's so important to work with both men and women and have them, I guess, both come from the same, we're both tackling the same challenge, but have a strengths-based approach and utilise the knowledge and the skills that both bring. And I think the important bit is the acknowledgement. It's not just, men that have the answers. It's actually, again, it brings back to that point around diversity. It's going to take a whole new school of thinking and bringing everyone's solutions to the fore.
Yeah, I would love to add. Yeah.
You go, Humera, sorry.
Okay. Please go on, Liz.
Okay, what I was going to say about the social challenges, I think it's really important that we have sensitive conversations with people that are the power brokers, but identifying them as as perceived barriers and working with them in a sensitive way so that, and I'll say this in inverted commas, so that ego isn't upset, because we want to get the best out from everyone. Yeah, there you go, Humera.
Yeah, I definitely agree with both of the perspective of yours project. So I would definitely add some few points into that. Like the women who are more capable through certain projects and through certain trainings or through certain exposures, actually they know that how they have to manage the families, and even they are contributing in the household nutrition as well. So they are having convincing power, and they can convince their male members as well. So we can't say that the women can be the only part of decision, or they need more empowerment in the decision making, but she needs that how she can manage all of the challenges even at farming system. So this is how, if she's capable, she learn more, she know the things in a better way, then she can convince and do adopted those practices as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Humera. I think it's about building the confidence of rural women in that way too. I mean, if you feel like you're not, if you don't have the best available knowledge or, you know, access to new knowledge, then you're not going to speak up or contribute your voice. So helping women to feel confident that they actually do understand their soils very well and their livestock very well, and they, you know, have years of experience in these systems. They know the local markets. So a lot of it, I think, is giving women the confidence to, you know, find their voice, to share their ideas and opinions. So we've got a question here from Rebecca. How do you give locally based women a larger voice in agricultural systems? How do you approach this in a culturally respective manner? So how do we give rural women a bigger voice?
I'll jump in there. Silence is golden. So two things that comes to mind, and again, going back to that, I guess, dual approach of having men and women work together. And this applies for both men and women. When you're given a position, and this applies also back anywhere in the world, back in Australia as well, when you're given a position, a privilege, an opportunity to put your, you know, opinion forward, insight in, it's actually, as a leader, it's important to, when you've had the hand up, be able to reach back and bring someone else along with you. And that's so important when women, you know, I'm very mindful of the opportunities that I've been given to bring others with you. So I think I feel like I answered that question a little bit more before in my form of response, so that would add to it.
And again, I think intentionally, you know, planning sessions to build capacity within a project, for example, making sure that you have opportunities for women to build capacity so that they do feel that they have the kind of skills and knowledge to be able to contribute to the conversation.
Yeah, I would add into Tamara's point that after developing the capacity into that, how economically she can get benefit, because particularly her family needs are related to all of the programs in all of the things she is doing. So if she is getting some of economical activities and interactions, then no one can stop her to take more power, and her voice will be definitely heard, and she can inspire more women in her village. So we have few examples seen around that those women are really working as a change agent and inspiring others as well after going through whole process.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, inspiring more women is really important. That leads us to our next question from Deirdre, which is, how do we encourage younger women into agriculture? So how do we get the next generation of young farming women involved in such an important sector, and also facing up to some of these big challenges like climate change that they face?
I think if we can make agriculture an attractive, profitable business, then people will be attracted back into it. So I think that goes for men and women.
I think a lot of it too is also the storytelling. You know, when I go to the city and I tell my urban friends about what I'm doing on the farm and, you know, these beautiful landscapes that I live in, you know, the amazing rural community that I'm part of, they go, wow, like I want to come and visit that place. Like I want to see, you know, what you do with the sheep, and, you know, I want to see the horses and things like that. So, you know, painting that picture of you know, how exciting agriculture is, like how beautiful it is to live in these rural communities. Yeah, I think storytelling is a lot to do with how we encourage people to be part of this sector.
I would agree and add that I feel agriculture has a significant perception problem in that, you know, when I say, oh yeah, I work in Papua New Guinea, or I'm involved in agriculture, they're like, oh, but you dress so lovely, or like your hair looks lovely, or so, like whatever I look like. I don't look like a person who works in ag. And so I think there's a perception challenge, and also about what an agricultural professional looks like, but also that agriculture is not just farming. It's not just driving. You know, everyone, in fact, I'd imagine everyone that's on this webinar are involved in, you know, in ag. And so I think that it's sharing those stories, but in a way that doesn't dumb down agriculture and demonstrates its complexity, because we're going to need all the bright minds that we have to be able to solve the solution, certainly in the context of climate change, that, yeah, we need.
Absolutely. Okay, we've got a question here. How do we get involved with awesome projects like these that you guys have described? So what would you recommend for a young person, or, you know, even not a young person, someone who's in that early mid-career research stage who wants to get involved in international agricultural development and perhaps in women and climate change issues also? So what would be your recommendation?
Talk to everyone you can and say yes to every opportunity that's given to you.
Yeah, and especially the storytelling thing which you mentioned, to share your urban friends. So already involved international students with even Pakistan. So we can share those links with you. You can hear their stories, that how they are engaged with and how they are contributing into that. So.
Yeah, I echo both of those points, and add by saying it took me a really long time to be able to work with ACR. I found out about them. I saw the work they were doing when I lived in country, and kid you not, every 6 months, I want to work for you, I want to work with you, you're amazing. And it was only when I a bit to Tamara's point, say yes to every opportunity, but be targeted and strategic about what it is that you want to do, because you don't want to say yes to something that's a little bit okay, but it's not really where you want to go. And I'm a bit of actually no, I'm going to own it. I'm a networking queen. I you know, get out there and share stories, but also listen to stories, what you can learn. It's not just about it's, you know, two-way communication. But at the core of that, be authentic. People resonate with people.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, Liz, you've been a volunteer. Anika, you were almost a volunteer. We had a volunteer when I was working in Laos. So I think that's a good opportunity. I mean, it's a good, if you can demonstrate that you can live and work in one of the countries that, you know, the ACR work happens in, then I think that goes a long way too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think be persistent too. I mean, I was doing my master's and I knew I wanted to do something overseas in a developing country. And I pretty much emailed everyone I knew and, you know, all the contacts in the university system. And thankfully, Tamara got back to me and said, yeah, we've got a project in Laos, and there's a chair in an office. And so I went over there and I sat with the team and I learned so much. And that was my foot in the door. And then, you know, I was able to work on other ACR projects and meet amazing people in country. And when I was back over here and connecting with RAID, you know, jumping on their website, looking at their social media streams, I mean, opportunities do come up. And also the Crawford Fund, which I mentioned earlier, they've got a scholarship for student travel awards. There's a lot of great Australian researchers out there. So it's just a matter of finding them, tapping them on the shoulder and saying you're interested. So we've got just a few more minutes. So we've got another question from Peter Wynn. How do we build the capacity of women to manage the family and the farm while men have to seek work off farm because of climate change? And so this is a trend that we do see, that, you know, as conditions become more challenging on the farm, we see that out-migration of men from rural places moving to the cities to find, you know, more work, different work, alternative income streams. And so women are being left behind on the farm to manage it. So does anyone have any final thoughts or comments on that?
I think whatever you do there will be really location specific. So the outmigration is a huge part of all of the South Asian countries that I was talking about, Nepal, Bangladesh and India, but the pattern of migration is very different. So in Nepal, people tend to go to the Gulf countries and they go for several years at a time. So the women are at home. In India, they tend to be more seasonal migration. So people will come back, men will outmigrate, but then they'll come back to plant or to harvest. And in Bangladesh, again, people tend to go for a longer migration. And because women don't traditionally work on the farm itself, then women take a more managerial role. So I think outmigration is not, again, it's not the same everywhere. So you need to be really cognizant of who's going for how long and what the tasks are that women traditionally do in those areas.
Echo the context comment, and what I've seen work well in many contexts is the power of getting farmers together in a localized area. That kind of grower group concept can really enable a number of different things, knowledge sharing, but also a sense of solidarity, which, both it's a technical point of view, but it's also a support point of view from a mental health component as well.
Brilliant, thanks for that. So we're going to wrap up there because that hour flew really quickly, but panelists, do you have any further comments or insights you want to share before we close on, on this topic, or, advice for anyone on the call tonight?
I would reckon that the conversation is just started now, or discussion is started now. So this is the first step, I think, to know each other, to share each other, so we can move forward with certain particular aspects of each project, and how we can move forward with the actions today you have with the chat and with the questions, so we can move forward with next webinars or others.
I agree. I'd be really interested to hear some more of the kind of solutions that people are talking about in terms of climate change. So we should keep the conversation going.
Yeah. And the only other thing that I would add is that I think the gendered implications of climate change have only been exacerbated by coronavirus. So now more than ever, we need to really focus and have be so considered in our thinking in terms of the research that we're doing in country and existing in the world.
Agree.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, participants, for attending. A big thank you to the RAID team and the Crawford Fund for supporting this and helping to run the event. You'll see in the chat box that there's been various links being posted throughout the conversation. There are next-gen opportunities being offered by the Crawford Fund. There are volunteer opportunities. There's $1,000 up for grabs by RAID for a blog competition. So please jump onto the websites, like and follow the social media channels. There's a lot going on with international agricultural research. As we've heard tonight, women in agriculture, climate change, they're huge issues, and we need bright, brilliant people working on these challenges so we can identify the solutions. So thank you everyone so much for being part of this. Yeah, keep in touch. Catch ya.
Thanks, Anika. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.